Have you ever looked at your child during a meltdown and wondered, why are they reacting this way? And why doesn't anything I try seem to work? If you felt stuck between wanting to connect and just trying to survive the moment, you're not alone, and the WholeBrain Child might just be the gentle shift in perspective you didn't know you needed. This book doesn't offer quick-fix parenting hacks or complicated brain science. Instead, it gives us something better, a clear and kind explanation of how a child's brain develops and why their emotional outbursts, fears, or sudden shutdowns actually make sense once we understand what's going on inside. It offers 12 practical, deeply insightful strategies that help us raise calmer, more connected, and emotionally balanced children, not by demanding more from them, but by supporting their growing brains in ways that truly work. The authors, Dr. Daniel Siegel and Dr. Payne Bryson, combine neuroscience and real-life parenting in the most gentle, encouraging way. And what makes this book special is its invitation, not to fix our children, but to understand them better. So let's begin. The first big idea in the WholeBrain Child is about integration. Imagine your child's brain as a house with upstairs and downstairs levels. The downstairs brain handles the basic things, like breathing, heart rate, emotions, and survival responses like fight, flight, or freeze. It's primitive and fast. The upstairs brain, however, is where logic lives. It's the thoughtful, problem-solving part of the brain that manages empathy, planning, and self-control. The catch? The upstairs brain is still under construction in kids. It doesn't fully develop until the mid-20s. So when your toddler throws themselves on the floor because you cut their toast the wrong way, or your 9-year-old slams the door over something that seems small, they're not being difficult. They're overwhelmed by their downstairs brain taking over, and they don't yet have full access to the logical tools we wish they had. This is where the first strategy comes in: connect and redirect. When your child is in the middle of an emotional storm, the instinct might be to explain, reason, or demand calm. But logic doesn't land when emotion is in charge. Instead, connect with the emotional part of their brain first, with your tone, your presence, your empathy. That might sound like, "Wow, this really upset you," or simply, "I can see you're feeling big feelings right now." Once you've made that emotional connection, their brain begins to regulate, and only then can you gently redirect them using logic or problem solving. It's like offering a life jacket before teaching someone how to swim. Connection is the life jacket. It helps the child feel safe, seen, and supported, and only then are they ready to think clearly. Example. Imagine your child just got bumped at school and now refuses to go back. Rather than saying, "You're fine, don't be dramatic," or, "You have to go, it's not a big deal," you pause. You say, "That must have really scared you. Getting pushed like that doesn't feel good." That moment of emotional acknowledgement is like a bridge between your two brains, theirs and yours. Once the child calms, you can then say, "Let's think about how you might handle it next time. Do you want to talk to the teacher? Or maybe we can practice what to say if it happens again." This shift, from commanding calm to modeling it, from pushing logic to inviting connection, is small but revolutionary. And as we'll see in the chapters ahead, these small shifts, done consistently and with love, make all the difference in helping our children grow into emotionally resilient, well-integrated human beings. Have you ever watched your child come apart after something upsetting? A scraped knee, a scary moment at school, a loud thunderclap, and found yourself at a loss for how to help them calm down? Maybe you offered reassurances, "You're okay," or "It's over now." But they only cried harder. That's because, like adults, kids often need something deeper than comfort, they need meaning. In this chapter, the authors introduce a concept they call, "name it to tame it." It's the idea that when children are overwhelmed by big emotions or confusing events, telling the story of what happened, and naming the feelings involved, helps their brain begin to make sense of the experience. It helps integrate their emotions and thoughts, and that integration brings calm. Think about it, when something shakes us as adults, an argument, a loss, a moment of fear, don't we often feel better after talking it through with someone? Not because the problem disappears, but because naming what happened gives us a sense of understanding and control. The same is true for kids. Let's take an example. Imagine a 5-year-old who had a rough fall on the playground. Later, every time you mention going outside, they melt down. You might be tempted to avoid the topic or say, "Don't worry, you won't fall again." But the more powerful move is to gently help them tell the story. You might say, "Remember when you fell off the swing? That must have been scary. I saw you cry, and your hands were all scraped up." As you help them piece the moment together with words, something shifts. Their brain is no longer just reacting, it's beginning to reflect. That reflection brings children tell their story with structure and safety. Depending on their age, you might even turn it into a little narrative or draw it out together. First you were swinging high. Then someone bumped you, and, oh, you slipped off. That's when you got scared and started crying. But then, remember what happened. I helped you up, and we washed your hands, and you felt better after a while. With younger kids, keep it short and visual. With older ones, invite them to fill in the gaps and express how it felt. This technique also helps with memories or past events that kids haven't yet processed. Maybe your child went through a move, or the loss of a grandparent, or something frightening like a hospital visit. If they're acting out or showing signs of anxiety, it might be their brain's way of signaling that they need help making sense of what happened. And the tool isn't just for trauma, it's for everyday emotions, too. A child who felt left out during recess or embarrassed in class can benefit from gently telling the story of that experience. When you help a child name what they feel, "You felt scared, that made you angry, it was confusing when that happened," you're not just talking. You're actually helping them wire their brain to handle emotion in a healthier way. You're strengthening the connection between the emotional right brain and the logical left brain, which leads to greater self-awareness and resilience over time. But this approach requires patience. Often, our instinct is to rush kids through their feelings or distract them away from pain. But what they really need is for us to sit with them, softly ask questions, and listen. Let the story unfold without judgment, and trust that the act of telling, in their own words, with your support, is healing all by itself. When a child feels seen and heard, they don't just feel better. They become better equipped to handle life's next big emotion. If you've ever tried to reason with your child during a meltdown, laying out logical facts, listing reasons they should calm down, or trying to explain why something isn't a big deal, and been met with even more tears, you've experienced what this chapter is all about. Our brains have two sides, the left brain and the right brain. The left is logical, language-based, and likes order. It's the side that says, "This doesn't make sense," or "Let's break this down." The right brain, on the other hand, is emotional, intuitive, and filled with images, body sensations, and feelings. It's the side that cries, laughs, feels deeply, and yes, sometimes reacts in ways that defy logic. Explain in this chapter is that young children are naturally right brain dominant. They live in their feelings. Their experiences are raw, and they often don't have the words or reasoning skills to make sense of those feelings, not yet. So when a child is upset and we lead with logic, we're speaking the wrong language. The key strategy here is to connect with the right, redirect with the left. That means when a child is emotionally flooded, our first move should be to meet them in that emotional place. Not to fix it or explain it away, but to show that we're with them in it. Let's say your child is heartbroken because their ice cream fell on the ground. It might be tempting to say, "It's just ice cream, we'll get another one." That's logical. That's left brain talk. But to a child, it's not just ice cream, it's joy, fun, a special moment that just disappeared. So instead, we begin with the right brain. "Oh no. That was your favorite flavor. You were so excited, and now it's all gone. That's really upsetting." What you're doing here is tuning into their emotional wavelength. You're saying, "I see your sadness. I feel it with you." That moment of connection calms their nervous system. And once the emotional storm starts to pass, then you can bring in the left brain. Let's see what we can do. Maybe we can ask if there's more, or find another treat you'd enjoy. This connect, then redirect approach works not just with young children, but with older kids too. Imagine a tween coming home from school in a terrible mood, throwing their backpack down and snapping at everyone. Instead of saying, "Don't take your bad mood out on us, talk to me when you're ready," try pausing and offering, "Rough day," or "Something happened, didn't it?" That soft opening shows your child that you're a safe place. You're not pushing them to explain. You're simply opening the door. And when they step through, when the tears come, or the story spills out, your job is to stay with their feelings first. Later, when things have calmed, that's when you can gently redirect. "How do you think you could handle that differently next time?" or "Want to talk through a plan together?" The beauty of this approach is that it helps build a bridge between the two sides of your child's brain. And with every connected moment, you're actually strengthening those neural pathways, making it easier for them to move between emotion and logic in the future. You're helping them learn, it's okay to feel, and it's possible to think clearly even when emotions are big. And perhaps just as importantly, you're modeling what it means to be emotionally available, balanced, and human. So next time your child loses it over something that seems small, remember, it's not about making it go away. It's about meeting them where they are, emotionally, and gently guiding them back to center, one brain hemisphere when no amount of words seem to work. You've tried talking, comforting, explaining, but your child is still spiraling. Whether they're angry, panicked, or completely shut down, something just isn't clicking. That's because sometimes, the brain needs help from the body to get back into balance. And this is the heart of Chapter 4. This chapter introduces a strategy that may seem surprisingly simple, but is incredibly powerful: move it or lose it. When a child's brain is flooded with emotion or stress, the thinking part of the brain often goes offline. What can bring it back online? Movement. Physical activity. Using the body to help regulate the mind. The authors explain how brain science shows that the brain and body are deeply connected, especially when it comes to emotion. When kids feel anxious, angry, or overwhelmed, their body stores that energy. Sitting still, talking calmly, or reasoning might be too much to ask. But movement can unlock the freeze or fire that's keeping them stuck. Let's say your child is fuming after losing a board game or getting in trouble. Instead of forcing them to talk it out immediately, try something that gets their body moving: a walk around the block, a few silly jumping jacks, a race to the mailbox and back. Movement doesn't just distract, it resets. It helps burn off the tension and reopens the channels for connection and conversation. It works because movement activates different parts of the brain, particularly areas involved in attention, mood regulation, and problem solving. That's why kids often seem calmer after recess or more focused after a bike ride. And the same principle applies in the heat of the moment. One family in the book shared how their daughter would get anxious before school. Instead of forcing her through a rushed morning routine, her dad would suggest a few laps around the yard or even a mini dance party in the kitchen. It was silly. It was light. But it worked. Her anxiety softened, and she felt more in control of her body, and therefore her day. The strategy isn't limited to those intense moments. You can build movement into your everyday rhythms to support emotional health: walking talks, post-dinner strolls, backyard games, impromptu dance breaks during chores. These little moments of motion help children regulate without even realizing it. And for the child who's already overwhelmed, who's crying or yelling or frozen in silence, sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is pause and say, "Hey, want to go move your body with me for a second?" Or even, "Let's stretch together," or "Want to hop to the kitchen like a frog?" These playful, non-threatening invitations create space for self-regulation without pressure. This isn't about distraction or avoiding emotion. It's about acknowledging that sometimes the brain needs the body's help. Once movement softens the storm, you can return to the conversation with more calm, more connection, and a better chance of being heard. Parents often try to manage emotion with words, and words are important. But never underestimate the power of a little movement to open the emotional door. When words fall short, the body may be the bridge back to balance. Sometimes as parents, we get caught off guard when a child suddenly brings up something we thought they were over. Maybe your child starts crying weeks after a scary doctor's visit or avoids the playground where they once fell. Or maybe they act out, and you can't connect it to anything happening in the present. The truth is, their brain might still be working through something their heart hasn't fully understood. Chapter 5 explores how memories, even the ones we don't consciously recall, can shape how children feel and behave. And how we, as caregivers, can help them process those memories in a healthy, healing way. The authors explain that memories don't just fade because time passes. In fact, unprocessed memories can live inside children, influencing their emotions and actions long after an event has passed. The key idea here is that narrative helps turn raw memory into something meaningful, and when a memory becomes a story, it starts to integrate. Let's imagine your child had a difficult separation at preschool drop-off. Weeks later, they still cry every morning. The instinct might be to push forward, "You're fine now," or "You've done this before." But their brain may still be looping through that early moment of distress. Instead of dismissing it, you can invite them to revisit it, safely, gently, and with your support. The strategy here is to help your child tell and retell their story. Not in a dramatic or overblown way, but in a simple, structured way that helps the memory find its place. For example, "Remember that time when I dropped you off and you felt really sad? You didn't want me to go. And you cried. But then Ms. Emma held your hand and read you that book about the bear, and by snack time, you were laughing." By creating a story that has a beginning, middle, and end, one that reflects the child's emotion and the resolution, you help their brain store the memory in a way that feels safe and whole. This is especially important for kids who've experienced anything frightening or emotionally overwhelming, even if it seems small. Had a terrible experience with a dog jumping on him. For weeks after, he panicked every time he saw a dog, even from far away. Instead of just avoiding dogs or telling him, "It won't happen again," the parents helped him draw what happened, talk through the moment step by step, and add what he wished had happened. The act of talking and drawing gave his brain a way to organize the fear, make sense of it, and eventually lessen the emotional power it held. It's important to note that some memories are implicit, they're stored in the body or emotions but aren't recalled with clear words or pictures. That's why some kids react to things without knowing why. Helping them name emotions, track patterns, and create gentle narratives can uncover those hidden layers and bring peace where there was once confusion. This strategy is also powerful when children misremember something in a way that makes them feel bad. For example, they might say, "I was the worst at the game. Everyone laughed at me." But as you gently talk through it, they might remember that a friend actually cheered them on or that they made a great comeback. The brain can reshape memory through storytelling, and your presence helps guide that process. In essence, you become a memory coach, helping your child revisit the past not to stay stuck in it, but to understand it and grow beyond it. You help them see that even hard things can be processed, talked about, and made less scary with time and love. When children feel that their experiences matter, and that someone is willing to sit with them in the hard parts, they feel seen. And feeling seen is the first step to healing, resilience, and deep emotional growth. As parents, we often want our kids to be strong individuals, confident, self-aware, able to think for themselves. At the same time, we want them to be kind, cooperative, and able to build meaningful relationships. But how do we teach children to care about others without losing themselves? To be aware of their own feelings without ignoring those is one of the most profound ideas in the book, the integration of the me and the we. In simple terms, it's about helping kids develop a strong sense of self and a strong sense of connection to others. Both are essential for a whole, healthy brain. The authors explain that when kids focus only on me, they can become selfish or disconnected. But when they focus only on pleasing others, on we, they may lose touch with their own needs and boundaries. True emotional health comes from honoring both, who am I, and how do I live alongside others. This can be tricky for kids. Imagine a child at a birthday party who doesn't want to share their toy. The me part says, this is mine. I don't want to give it up. The we part, though, might feel guilt or pressure. If I don't share, they'll be mad at me. As a parent, your job isn't to force one or the other, but to help your child balance those inner voices. One way the authors suggest doing this is by teaching children to recognize that they are part of something bigger. You can start by using language that connects. In our family, we help each other, or how do you think your friend felt when that happened? This isn't about guilt. It's about gently expanding their awareness beyond themselves. At the same time, you validate their individual needs. You really wanted that toy to yourself for a little longer, I get that. Then, once their emotions are acknowledged, you can invite a reflection. What's something kind you could do next, or how can we solve this together? Another strategy introduced in this chapter is something called mindsight. It's a beautiful word the authors use to describe the ability to reflect on one's own thoughts and feelings, as well as to understand others. You can help your child develop mindsight by simply asking questions like, what do you think your brain was telling you when you yelled? Or, what do you think your sister felt when you took her toy? These questions aren't about blame, they're about awareness. One powerful moment in the book is when a child refuses to apologize after hurting someone's feelings. Instead of forcing an apology, the parent invites the child to pause and reflect. How do you feel inside when someone treats you that way? That moment of perspective building helps the child access empathy, not from pressure, but from understanding. When children learn to hold both their own feelings and other people's experiences at the same time, they become more balanced, more compassionate, and more emotionally resilient. They're not just learning how to behave, they're learning how to be in the world. This chapter reminds us that parenting is not just about shaping behavior, but about shaping the brain, moment by moment, conversation by conversation. And when we help our children connect the me and the we, we're teaching them something far more valuable than any rule or consequence. We're teaching them how to live with heart. Every parent has experienced that moment when their child just seems to lose it. Maybe it's a toddler in full meltdown mode, or a tween slamming doors and storming off. In those moments, it's tempting to respond with commands, threats, or lectures. But what the authors offer in this chapter is a simple, powerful truth. We can't expect kids to use a part of the brain that hasn't finished developing. What they need isn't punishment, it's practice. This chapter focuses on the upstairs brain, the part of the brain responsible for things like planning, decision-making, self-regulation, and empathy. The problem is, this part of the brain doesn't fully mature until well into the 20s. So when your 5-year-old screams instead of using their words, or your 11-year-old reacts without thinking, they're not being defiant, they're being human. And still growing. That's why this strategy encourages us to engage the upstairs brain rather than just control behavior. In other words, instead of making kids obey or comply in the heat of the moment, we invite them to practice using their higher thinking skills. The more they use it, the more it develops. Let's imagine your child grabs a toy from their sibling and a fight breaks out. Rather than jumping in with, give that back right now or you're in timeout, you might say, I saw what happened there. Do you think you can figure out a better way to solve this? Or, how do you think your sister felt when that happened? You're not just trying to resolve the conflict. You're inviting your child to think, reflect, and make a choice. You're nudging them to use their upstairs brain. Another way to build this skill is by giving kids the chance to make decisions. Small choices empower their brain to practice thinking ahead. Do you want to brush teeth before or after putting on pajamas? Would you rather read 2 books or play a game for 10 minutes? These aren't just routines, they're training exercises for growing minds. When the upstairs brain is completely offline. When a child is flooded with emotion, you won't be able to reason or negotiate. In those moments, connection comes first, a calm tone, a soothing presence, a simple, I'm right here. Then, as the emotional storm passes, you can gently engage the thinking brain again. The authors offer a beautiful example of a child who was terrified about an upcoming school presentation. Instead of brushing it off or saying, "You'll be fine," the parent said, "Let's make a plan together." They helped the child rehearse, imagine what to do if they felt nervous, and choose calming strategies to use beforehand. That planning, that act of visualizing and preparing, helped the child feel in control. And it helped strengthen those upstairs brain pathways that regulate fear and decision-making. And here's something empowering. Every time you support your child in solving a problem, calming themselves down, or considering someone else's perspective, you're helping them build a stronger brain. You're literally shaping the neural architecture that will guide them through school, friendships, and life. This chapter reminds us that discipline isn't about control, it's about teaching. And the best teaching doesn't happen in the middle of chaos. It happens in those calm, consistent, connected moments when your child knows, "I can figure this out. I'm not alone. I can grow." So when your child struggles with self-control or empathy, remember, it's not a failure. It's a chance. A chance to build, to teach, and to help their upstairs brain get a little stronger each time. There's a moment every parent knows, when your child gets stuck in a feeling. Maybe they're frustrated and can't let it go, or scared and unwilling to move forward. You try comforting, distracting, even reasoning, but nothing seems to work. That's because, in that moment, the feeling has taken over. The emotion becomes their entire world. In this chapter, the authors offer a beautiful tool that helps children understand that feelings come and go, that they are real, but they are not forever. They call this tool the wheel of awareness. Imagine a bicycle wheel. At the center, the hub, is calm, clear awareness. From that hub, many spokes reach outward to the rim, where different experiences sit, a thought, a feeling, a body sensation, a sound, a memory. When your attention focuses on one of those things, say, anger or fear, it can feel like that's all there is. But the truth is, it's just one spoke. One experience. It will pass, and others will come. This is what we want our kids to understand: you can feel something without becoming it. You can notice anger without being anger. You can feel scared and still stay centered. That's a powerful lesson, and one most adults are still learning. This awareness starts with how we talk about emotions. Instead of saying, "You are angry," we can say, "You're feeling anger right now." That little shift in language sends a big message: you are not your feelings. Feelings come, and feelings go. Let's say your child is upset because they weren't invited to a birthday party. They feel hurt, left out, maybe even angry. Rather than rushing to fix it, "You'll be invited next time," or "Let's do something fun instead," you might say, "Yeah, that really stings. You're feeling sad and maybe a little rejected right now. That's okay. Those feelings will pass." And then, you wait. You stay near. You let the emotion roll by, like clouds in the sky. No need to chase them away. Just notice. Name. Breathe. And stay grounded in that hub of calm. With older kids, you can even teach them to visualize this. Sit with them and say, "Imagine your mind like a big wheel. Right now, your attention is on the sadness spoke. But there are other spokes, too: your breath, your memories, your hopes, your strengths. You can notice the sadness without staying stuck there." This technique doesn't just soothe a moment, it builds emotional resilience. It helps children develop the ability to observe their internal world rather than be controlled by it. And that's a gift that will serve them for life. It also gives parents a gentle reminder: we don't have to rush kids through their feelings. We can offer presence, perspective, and patience. We can remind them that emotions are like weather, real, sometimes stormy, but always moving. And underneath, there's always a space of calm they can return to. So the next time your child is caught in a wave of emotion, try this: pause, breathe, and say softly, "Let's watch this feeling together." It's just one part of what you're experiencing. And it won't last forever. In that simple moment, you're doing something profound. You're teaching your child not just how to feel, but how to stay whole while doing it. Children often get caught up in the moment, a disappointment, an argument, a worry, and it can feel like that moment defines everything. As a parent, you may find yourself repeating things like, "It's not a big deal," or "You're overreacting," hoping to calm them down. But what if, instead of brushing aside those experiences, we helped kids learn how to manage their minds by focusing their strategy rooted in something the authors call mind sight. Mind sight is the ability to see your own mind, to recognize your thoughts and feelings, understand what others are experiencing, and intentionally shift your focus. It's like giving your child a mental flashlight, allowing them to direct where they shine their awareness. Children aren't born with this ability. It's a skill, and like any skill, it grows with practice. This chapter shows us how to help kids exercise mind sight so they can respond more thoughtfully to life's ups and downs instead of being swept away by them. The authors share that where we focus attention actually shapes the brain. So, when we help kids notice what's going on inside, and choose what to focus on, we're not just helping them feel better in the moment. We're strengthening the neural pathways that support emotional regulation, empathy, decision-making, and calm. Here's how that might look in everyday life. Imagine your child comes home discouraged after a bad day. They can't stop talking about everything that went wrong, a missed answer in class, a friend who didn't sit with them, a forgotten homework assignment. Their entire mood is wrapped around what went poorly. You listen, nod, acknowledge the hard parts, but then, you gently guide their attention elsewhere. That does sound like a tough day. And you got through it. What's one thing that went okay today? Did you laugh at lunch? Did you enjoy the story your teacher read? You're not ignoring the bad, you're just helping your child practice shifting their attention to include the good. You're strengthening their ability to zoom out and take a fuller view. Another way to build mind sight is through simple reflection. At the end of the day, ask your child questions like, "What's something that made you smile today?" Or, "Was there a moment you felt brave?" These reflections help children become more aware of their emotional patterns, and over time, more in control of them. The authors also suggest short, kid-friendly mindfulness practices. These don't have to be formal. A few deep breaths before dinner. A quiet moment of noticing the sounds in the room. Even a game where you close your eyes and take turns saying what you hear or feel. These small exercises train the brain to slow down and observe rather than react. One parent in the book helped their daughter manage anxiety by teaching her to visualize her thoughts like leaves floating down a stream. "You don't have to grab them," they'd say. "Just watch them pass." That simple image helped the child realize that not every thought needs to be held onto. Some can be observed and focus their attention. They build mental strength. They begin to see that they can feel a feeling without being consumed by it. That they can have a thought without believing it's the whole truth. And that they can choose what they want to give energy to, worry, anger, hope, or calm. And just as importantly, they begin to understand that other people have thoughts and feelings too. That kind of insight builds empathy, the heart of all healthy relationships. So, when your child is stuck in a mood or a mindset, try offering them that flashlight. Where do you want to shine your attention right now? Then, walk with them as they learn to see their inner world more clearly, and guide it with confidence. At the heart of every child's growth is one simple truth: relationships shape the brain. In this chapter, the authors explore how the day-to-day interactions within a family, the small moments, the rituals, the conversations, all play a role in helping a child feel secure, seen, and connected. And when a child feels connected, their brain thrives. The strategy in this chapter is about creating connection through everyday enjoyment. It's about making time, not just for teaching, correcting, or solving problems, but for delighting in each other. The authors explain that emotional connection isn't a bonus or something that only happens when everything is going well. It's the foundation. And it can be built through even the simplest of moments. Picture a family dinner. There might be spills, picky eating, tired kids, and parents trying to manage it all. But in the middle of that chaos, there can be connection, a shared laugh over a joke, a silly face, a game of two truths and a lie. That moment of joy becomes a thread in the child's brain, reinforcing a sense of belonging and emotional safety. One of the most beautiful ideas in this chapter is that connection builds resilience. When children feel securely connected to the people around them, they are better able to handle stress, recover from challenges, and stay emotionally balanced. That connection doesn't have to come from perfection. In fact, the authors remind us that repair is just as important as harmony. Let's say you lose your temper and yell, it happens to all of us. What matters most is what happens next. A calm apology, a hug, a few honest words like, "I didn't handle that well, and I'm sorry," can do more for connection than pretending the outburst never happened. Children learn from our willingness to be human, and from our commitment to reconnect. The chapter also encourages building rituals of connection. These don't have to be elaborate. A bedtime song. A family walk after dinner. A Saturday pancake breakfast. These rituals create rhythms in a child's life, something they can count on, something that says, we are a team. Even brief moments of one-on-one time can make a difference. 5 minutes snuggled on the couch. A few minutes sitting on the floor while they build with blocks. A quick check-in at bedtime where you ask, what was your favorite part of the day? It doesn't take much. But it means everything. One parent in the book made a tradition called Roses and Thorns, where everyone at dinner shared one good thing and one hard thing from their day. It created space for laughter, connection, and vulnerability, a reminder that all feelings were welcome at the table. And that's a core message in this chapter: connection makes room for the full range of emotion. It tells your child, you don't have to be perfect to belong here. Your feelings, even the big ones, are safe with us. In a world where children are often expected to perform, behave, and get it right, what they need most at home is a sense of being cherished, not for what they do, but for who they are. So let your home be a place of joy. A place of repair. A place of silliness, honesty, and deep connection. That's not just good parenting, it's brain building. This chapter invites parents to look inward, not in judgment, but in gentle curiosity. The authors remind us that our own past experiences, especially from childhood, influence how we respond to our children. Our triggers, our tone, even how we handle emotions, all of it is shaped by what we've lived. So when we find ourselves reacting more strongly than we'd like, snapping when we meant to soothe, shutting down when we hope to stay calm, it's often not just about our child's behavior. It's also about what's unresolved within us. The strategy here is simple but transformative: revisit and reflect. The authors encourage us to examine our own stories, the way we were parented, the emotional patterns we grew up with, not to place blame, but to bring awareness. Because when we understand why we react the way we do, we can choose to respond differently. Let's say, for example, you were raised in a home where anger was scary, maybe it meant yelling or punishment. As a parent, you might now feel anxious or shut down when your child gets angry, even if they're just expressing frustration. Your instinct might be to stop the emotion as quickly as possible, "That's enough," or "Go to your room." But when you reflect on your own past, you begin to see that your discomfort isn't just about your child's outburst, it's about an emotional echo from your own childhood. It gives you space to pause, to breathe, to respond instead of react. And that pause, that shift, breaks generational patterns and opens up a new way of parenting. The authors share that parents who create what's called a coherent narrative, meaning, they've made sense of their own childhood, even if it was difficult, are far more likely to raise children who are emotionally secure. It's not about having a perfect past. It's about understanding it. One mother in the book had been raised in a home where emotions weren't discussed. She realized she struggled to comfort her son when he cried. Instead of beating herself up, she began journaling about her childhood and talking to a friend about how she wanted to parent differently. Over time, she found herself becoming more comfortable sitting with her son's feelings, not because she had all the answers, but because she had started healing her own story. And that's the beauty of this chapter. It reminds us that parenting isn't just about raising our children, it's also about raising ourselves. Growing in self-awareness. Learning to offer ourselves the same compassion and curiosity we give our kids. The authors aren't suggesting that we analyze every moment or become hyper-focused on our past. They're simply inviting us to notice. To ask ourselves, what's really happening in me right now? And to know that the more we understand our own inner world, the more we can help our children navigate theirs. You don't need to have everything figured out to be a great parent. What your child needs most is your willingness to grow, your openness to reflection, and your courage to show up, imperfectly, but wholeheartedly. Because the truth is, parenting transforms us as much as we transform our children. And every moment of insight, every choice to pause and reflect, brings more peace, more connection, and more joy to both our science, the stories, and the emotional wisdom of parenting with the brain in mind. This final chapter brings it all together. It's like stepping back to view the full picture, a gentle reminder that parenting is less about getting it all right and more about growing the brain through everyday connection. Here, the authors offer a summary of the 12 strategies introduced throughout the book, not in a checklist kind of way, but as tools to return to over and over again. Tools that help you understand your child's brain, respond with compassion, and foster emotional integration. They remind us that each of these strategies helps develop a child's ability to connect the different parts of their brain, upstairs and downstairs, left and right, self and others. And that integration is the foundation of well-being. But more importantly, they encourage parents to make these tools their own. You don't have to remember every detail or execute every idea perfectly. What matters most is intentionality, showing up with presence, curiosity, and a willingness to learn alongside your child. The authors also include a helpful visual summary, a refrigerator sheet you can post or glance at on tough days. It's a simple way to keep the core ideas close, connect and redirect. Name it to tame it. Move it or lose it. Engage, reframe, reflect. They're reminders that we're not alone, and that we have choices in how we respond, even in the hardest parenting moments. And the real gift of this book is that it doesn't just change how we see our kids. It changes how we see ourselves. It gives permission to pause. To take a breath before reacting. To forgive ourselves when we mess up. And to remember that every moment of connection, no matter how small, helps shape a child's brain, heart, and lifelong sense of self. As parents, we don't need to be perfect. We just need to be present. When we bring empathy, structure, and reflection into our homes, we create a space where children feel safe, emotionally and neurologically, to grow into their fullest selves. And so, the final message of the WholeBrain Child is one of hope. That with awareness and a few simple tools, we can raise kids who are resilient, emotionally intelligent, and deeply connected, to themselves and to others. And in doing so, we raise ourselves. If moments of clarity, reflection, or even peace, imagine the impact of reading the full book. The WholeBrain Child is filled with real-life stories, practical scripts, and illustrations that bring the science to life in a way that's both simple and transformative. So if you want to dig deeper and bring more calm, connection, and brain-smart strategies into your parenting, consider reading the full book by Dr. Daniel J. Siegel and Dr. Payne Bryson. Your future self, and your child, will thank you. And if you found this summary helpful, please subscribe for more audiobook-style parenting wisdom. Like, comment, and share with someone who could use a little more understanding in their parenting journey. Because you're not alone, and together, we're raising the next generation with heart, presence, and intention.